Hello. Hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3956. Today's date is uh, today's date is March 22, 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 7:23 a.m. Okay. So should we jump into the question? All right. Yeah. Let's go. Let's jump right into the question. Okay. So the question is, okay, where do my perform priority risk are privileging visible announcement over deep systematic transformation, and how will I guard against the policy theater? That's a very complicated question. It's not complicated, it's a kind of like a thing that na, ki is like a, it sound complicated, but it's not. It's just a kind of like a typical question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? Basically, it's this thing na कि I want to become a education minister of India, okay, and before I want to become that particular person, I wanted to like okay, first of all, why am I wanted to be education minister of India? Because of that, कि I wanted to add some sort of changes in our education system, in our education policy, specifically in India. It's not good, okay, and I think that na कि I could add some sort of amount of value in education system. How and why? Is because of that कि I think that कि like I already explained, but still, why do you think that ki you are the kind of like a particular person that you could kind of like a change that education system? Why? Throughout the entire life, like whatever the life that I live, I found some sort of changes according to the how does I consume the information. Okay, and not only just me, as well as every human, how does human consume the information? Okay. um, Usually humans are actually consume information through visual language or visual elements, like if I'm gonna say elephant, so you visualize elephant, I also visualize as an elephant, but our education system kind of like something represent as a ELE okay, yeah. So this is what it is, our my education system, like at least in India, education system are kind of like a base on word, they are not specifically in visualization, okay, yeah. Another thing is that there is no kind of like a practical thing, there is no kind of like a practical things, means there is no kind of like there is no just a theoretical knowledge and things and that there is a lot of thing that is a kind of like a lot of problem in our education system. Why am I kind of like a thing that I could able to be change that thing is because of that ki, because of this artifact I could kind of like see the world from different point of perspective, okay, yeah. And when I see the world from different point of perspective, I consume lot of information inside of me, okay. And not only I consume the information, I implement that information in me, okay, yeah. So that's why I think that I could able to be kind of like add something value in our education system, okay. I am not kind of like a somebody kind of like a telling that I am kind of like a this, I'm that and that and that, but the way that if the kind of like a things that na ki I could see the problem and I could know that ki I could solve the problem, why I cannot solve the problem? I have to be solve the problem na, okay, yeah. So I think that na ki I could able to be solve that problem, I could able to be kind of like a fix that particular thing, okay, yeah. But like basically why are you why kind of but why, yeah, like basically if you think that is a problem, but other people think that is not a problem, then what is actually concern with you? Why are you kind of like a try to change? Okay, yeah. Like basically it's this thing, if you think this is the problem but other people don't doesn't think that is a problem, then why are you try to fix that problem? Well, basically it's this thing na ki it's not that ki other didn't really found the problem. Ask anybody that ki is their education system, specifically Indian education system, is good. Most of the people say no, they are not really good. I also been there. I also kind of like somebody getting the education from education system, and the entire information that I know till now is from kind of like a self studies, from artifact, from the way that I consume the experience and that. The amount of information that I have and amount of information that I get from education system is just almost like a less than 5%. Yeah, just less than. Like they only kind of like somebody give me a credibility that I could able to be read, I could able to be kind of like a do little bit of basic mathematics and things and that. Rest of the education I consume by myself, by artifact and things and that. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing na ki that's why I think that ki there is a kind of like some problem, and not only just me saying that, everyone kind of like saying this thing that ki Indian education system there is a kind of like a lot of problems and things and that, and I think I could able to be solve that problem. Okay. So before I want to become that particular person, I am not really sure like this, like basically is this thing na ki when will I become that particular person, I'm not really sure. It's a way ahead of future, I don't know. But at the moment I just have to understand how it actually work, how does this kind of like assembly this education system work, and kind of like assembly I should supposed to be asked so many questions to myself, so that I would be aware of that particular thing, that ki what am I stepping on. Okay, it's just an artifact, there is nothing really at all. Okay, I am not trying to implement anything at all, I'm just kind of like asking question to myself and kind of like try to give the answer as much as possible. So it's a kind of like a training wheel program, okay, that I wanted to kind of like a train, I wanted to understand that is this kind of like a problem that I'm thinking in reality, is it or not. So that's why I'm actually asking this question to myself, so that I would aware of more of that. Disclaimer, okay, yeah. The stuff that I'm trying to tell you today is today's point of perspective. Today's means like today's date is 22 March 2026. From today's point of perspective, and as also I am telling this thing from whatever the mindset that I have today. Okay, yeah, because I haven't really seen the future. I don't know what kind of like a policy would gonna change. I don't know what kind of like a person that I will gonna become in the future too. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing na ki just understand that ki I'm kind of like telling this thing from today's point of perspective. Whatever the information that I have, I'm telling from today's point of perspective. Okay. Also, the information that I will gonna tell is not exactly right too, is not exactly wrong too. It's a raw, it's unfiltered, it's artifact. Okay, yeah. So basically just think that now I'm just kind of like elaborating my ideas and execution thing, but that is not a stagnant. Okay, yeah. If I will try to execute this thing in the future, it would be a little bit different, maybe more refined and things and that. But do not kind of like somebody consider is a fixed, no, it's just the stuff that I'm saying, it's raw, is unfiltered and things and that. Okay, so should we proceed? All right. Now regarding about this question, the question is kind of like a bit more difficult to explain, but I'm just trying to kind of like tell you. By the way, I wrote this question in here. By the way, is this thing where do I kind of like a question it came. So basically I kind of like said that key said to ChatGPT that key I wanted to become the education minister of India. Suggest me at least like hundreds of questions, so that I would ask to myself and kind of like understand that key what kind of like a new problem that I will gonna face and things and that. ChatGPT kind of like suggests me hundreds of questions. Those questions are actually in the mobile phone. Okay, yeah. But while recording I cannot do anything at all, so that's why I wrote the question in here. Okay, yeah, this is. And if you are kind of like a thing, what exactly is this book? This is the book that I'm reading, How to Win and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Really amazing book. Okay, yeah, so let's just talk about the question. Okay, yeah, the question is, okay, where do my reform priorities risk privileging visible announcement over deep systematic transformation, and how will I guard against the policy theater? Okay, what exactly is this question? I'm gonna kind of like explain this question in simple language. Okay, yeah. So this question have a kind of like a three question. Okay, yeah. Like in this question there is a kind of like a three question. First question is that the visible announcement risk means like that where it just painting my front door or not. The second question, the deep systematic transformation goal means where should I fixing the foundation. And the third question is a policy theater, means like that how do I stop acting and start doing. Still not understanding now? Okay, I'm kind of like explain this thing in even more simple language. Okay, let's take a kind of like a first question. Okay, yeah, the visible announcement risk, where am I just painting the front door or not? Okay, what exactly is this thing? Okay, let's just say that ki imagine that ki you have a broken house. Okay, yeah, and broken house, your pipes are leaks, the maybe ceiling is not really waterproof or things and that. So what is exactly your solution for that? Like your solution should not be supposed to be kind of like a make your house pretty. No, it does not fix the problem. It just kind of like a over layer of things that considered as a beautiful, but the initial problem is not solved. The pipe is leak, the ceiling is still leaking, the painting of the wall doesn't really fix all those problems, nothing really at all. So basically is this thing that I have to be asked this question to myself, that if I wanted to kind of like a reform any kind of like a education system in India, I have to be understand that that reform, that changes that I'm trying to do, is the changes are actually impact on the problem, or just a kind of like a just I'm just adding a layer of kind of like a something that from outside point of perspective it look beautiful, but inside point of perspective it does not. Okay, yeah. So what is actually that? Okay, first of all is that this question is a kind of like a clearly say that is my kind of like a assembly program will solve actually problem or not. Okay, or just painting the wall. So let's just say what kind of like a something that key problem that it has in our education system, and how do I supposed to solve them. Okay, yeah. So let's just say in our education system, okay, yeah, is actually based on marks. Okay, yeah, like basically marks means like that how many percentage that you get, like a 10 out of 2, 10 out of 10, like 35 percentage, 65 percentage, 95 percentage, 99 percentage. Let me give you my point of perspective. I was in 10th standard. We called as a SSC. Okay, yeah, SSC exam, and in the SSC exam I got 56 percentage. Okay, in HSC program means SSC board means 12th board, I get 49 percentage. Okay, yeah. So from that point of perspective I get 56 and 49 percentage. So I am not a kind of like a credible person to do anything at all, right? Like it's kind of like somebody represent me that I am not good at education system because I got 56 marks or 49 marks. Okay, yeah, but is it like basically is this thing na I seen lot of successful people, lot of successful people, they are not really good at their education because like basically their credibility is not defined by the education system. Yeah, literally is this thing. Like let's just say Mark Zuckerberg dropped his college at mid, like basically he didn't really continue his graduation. He started doing Facebook and then just, yeah, same thing with the Elon Musk, same thing with the every possible people that you think that every person that you think he's a kind of like a achieve so many success in his life, he's not really good at schooling. Obviously he didn't really get any marks and at all. So basically same thing I am actually asking to myself, that key, if the people who are got really successful, they didn't really get that many percentage, they didn't really get that much kind of like a good grades in their school and things and that, then how they kind of like achieve that success? Okay, yeah. So someone is kind of like a lying, their success is lying or their percentage is lying. So the success is not lying, they have that success is because of that ki they put a lot of effort in so many things, so that's why they kind of like achieve that success and things and that that's legit. So who is lying? Their percentage, their education system, because their education system is not define their credibility. They didn't really define that key this particular person is kind of like a really good or not. Okay, yeah. And you understand that thing, that key every particular person, they are like not really good at school and things and that, but they are kind of like achieve lot of success and things and that. So our education system is not define their credibility. Okay, yeah. A grades, B grades, how many percentage that it has, it does not define that particular person is will become successful or not. Okay, so the education system, there is a problem, marks. Okay, yeah. But still is this thing, why we have these marks, like why we introduce these marks, like why we have kind of like a somebody that key test, like basically is this thing that key does education policy maker doesn't really understand that key their policies are not really implementing, they are not kind of like a define the credibility of the person. So does not they understand that? Well, they understand, then why they are not fixing it? They don't want to. Okay, why? Okay, so this is a kind of like a somebody human psychology. Okay, yeah. That key basically is this thing, let's just say that key, okay, if hundreds of people are actually going on this direction, okay, yeah, and you are the person who knows that key going to the this direction is not good, is not right, you have to go this direction, but would you go this direction? No, you will not. Even if that the path that you might gonna kind of like a somebody will gonna follow, it might gonna right mark it gonna right way and things and that, but still when you still know that this way is really good, really right, but still you follow this way. Why? Because people follow that thing. Okay, let me tell you one thing, the right and wrong statement means what is exactly right and what is exactly wrong is defined by the how many people consider that is right and how many people consider that is wrong. Okay, yeah. So even if the way that everyone kind of like a follows is considered in realistic point of perspective is wrong, but in psychological point of perspective it is right, because everyone kind of like a doing it, that means like basically if everyone are kind of like a go to the engineering, I also go to the engineering too. Why? Because everyone follows that thing, and this is our psychology, that key we are kind of like a wants to kind of like a with the people, because our human development is actually kind of like a happen through living with the people and kind of like a somebody that key living with the people and kind of like a somebody that key, like basically this thing na ki like our human development is actually happened by with the human, with the part of community. Our human development actually happened by we are living together, because when we live together our survival rate is actually become higher. So that's why this thought process are intact in itself. So hundreds of people are actually going this direction, we just kind of like a choose this direction. Okay, yeah. Now basically this is same thing happened with our education system too. Okay, yeah. Now let me tell you one thing, why we have kind of like a something that. Okay, so let me tell you one thing, it's actually started from like a 200 year. Okay, 200 year, like let's just say 1900, like a 1901. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing what exactly happened. Okay, the industrial growth, industrial evolution is actually happened in 18th century. Okay, 19th century. Okay, yeah. I'm not really sure the exact date, but somewhat something like that. Okay, yeah. Specifically it actually happened in Europe. Now what is actually industrial revolution? Industrial revolution means like that ki we are kind of like making equipments, car, kind of like a something, the fan, or kind of like a something that house, or kind of like a things like basically is this thing na ki usually we are like the clothes that I'm wearing, this stuff and that, how am I kind of like a wearing this thing? Like I'm kind of like a somebody sitting on the someone rooftop. There is a kind of like a concrete wall. This is a kind of like a legit home and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically, this thing why is that? Is because of that. Ki previously humans are not have that thing, not they don't really have a kind of like a something. They don't know how to build the cars. They don't know nothing really at all. The mode of transportation that they have is a kind of like something legs, or the maybe horse, or maybe kind of like a something the camel or things like that. Okay, yeah. But since the industrial revolution actually happened, the life became easier. Yeah, literally life became easier. The house that you have is much more stronger than previous one. The transportation mode that you have is much more faster than previous one. The clothes that you are wearing kind of like a much more warmer than previous one. It's a upgraded life. Okay, yeah, that is called upgraded life. That upgraded life is kind of like a something created by industrial revolution. Okay, yeah, in the industrial revolution, bunch of factories are kind of like established in Europe, specifically in Europe. Okay, a bunch of factories are actually established, and they are kind of like creating the product regarding about the car, houses, whatever it is. Okay, yeah. Now basically because of this actually happened, how is actually happened? Okay, yeah. So basically this thing that the industrialist like they kind of like found that ki they wanted to create the product. The problem is that na ki how they will gonna do that, because they really required a manpower. Okay, manpower means like the strength and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. But they also realize that ki even if they hire a people who has a manpower, they don't really have a kind of like have a intelligence. Okay, yeah. Now what is actually intelligence? Let me kind of like give you the even more context. So basically in 17th or 18th century, education is not a kind of like a something that essential factor, is a considered as a luxury. Okay, what is a luxury? Is this thing that key today education system are essential. We really required to understand reading, learning, doing mathematics and things like that. These are very essential basic skills to live the life and things like that. But 200 years ago, these are not essential. These are considered as a luxury. Education considered as a luxury. So only elite people are kind of like doing the education, learning things and that. Elite people means what? King and queen and kind of like some little bit people who are higher education things and that is not for everybody. So almost like only 10% people or maybe even lesser than that who kind of like get the education and things and that. 90% people are not. But when the industrial revolution actually happened, the industrialists they kind of like realized that ki we need so many manpower. Obviously, we will not gonna hire the elite people for doing manpower. Why? Because obviously they are way much expensive. They are very less in number, and it's not really possible to hire them because it's much more costlier. So obviously they need to hire a kind of like something like the people who are like like not have that much education. Okay, yeah. But also the problem is that if they are not really educated people, then how they will gonna work in our factory? Okay, how they kind of like perform really good, how they kind of like make the product really good. So the European people, okay, yeah, like it's not kind of like a legit history. Okay, it's a kind of like some average point of perspective I'm trying to tell you. Okay, so they understand that we have to train them, we have to train the people. Okay, so the people who are didn't really educated at all, since like industrial revolution happened, it's really essential for them to learn, to read, to things and that and that. So the industrialists kind of like somebody try to train them that key A for apple, B for ball, things and that and that and that. Okay, so that they would kind of like utilize that information to create the product and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Then industrial realize that it's not really possible for them to kind of like train and things. So they kind of like assembly education system is actually established. Okay, people understand that key. Okay, we have to kind of like assembly get the education so that we get the job, means so that they will get the money. Okay, understand this thing. So basically our education system is flourish is only and only is because of that ki they will kind of like get the job and they will get the money. And this is a kind of like a potential kind of like a crux regarding about the problem. Okay, yeah. We usually do education is because for money. Yeah, literally this thing. Okay, yeah. Ask question to anybody. Why do you wanted to learn? Why do you wanted to kind of like somebody go to the school and things and that and that? everyone has a kind of like a some similar example. Is that why, like ask anybody, why do you want to go to the school? Because they will kind of like learn things. Okay, why do you want to learn things? Because in the future they will kind of get a job. Okay, why would I do the job? Because I need a money. Okay, so basically is this thing that key our human are kind of like a associate education with money. Having more education, having more money, having more education, having more money. So this is what kind of like assembly we attach that bond. We attach that bond. So even if the particular person who is a kind of like assembly is this thing that he kind of like assembly wanted to do something different, or wanted to kind of like assembly different and things and that particular person will not gonna do educate. So if that particular person will not gonna do educate, he will not gonna kind of like somebody get that much amount of money. When he not that get that much amount of money, then probably that particular person will become poor. Example, music. Okay, yeah, music is a kind of like a thing is not associated with the education system. Okay, yeah, music is a kind of like a different subject. But if you are the kind of like a particular person who kind of like a love music and things and that, then probably what will gonna happen is that key music is not associated with the Indian in any education system. Okay, yeah. So if you love music, it will not in the education system. So if you just focus on music, then you will not gonna get education. So if you're not gonna get education, you will not gonna get money. So directly relevant. So that's why the music are kind of like assembly considered as a kind of like assembly at that time 200 years ago is considered as a kind of like assembly not earning source of skill. Okay, like a basically is this thing, if you know ABCD, then you are get a job and things and that. But if you know the music, then probably you will not gonna get money 200 years ago. Okay, I'm talking about 200 years ago. Okay, yeah. So because of the music is not really associated with the education and things and that, so that's why very less people are actually incorporate music in its own life. So that's why we actually see today is that ki very less musician, like basically is this thing, when did you found a kind of like a somebody violinist or a kind of like a somebody a guitar player? Like basically is this thing that na everybody knows A for apple, B for ball, but no one knows the notes, no one knows the beats, no one knows the things and that. Even I don't really knew it. Like I love the music, but I don't know the notes and things and that. Okay, why is that? Same thing is that key, like a basically is this thing, music is not incorporate with a job, with not money. So basically it just not connect. And since then, just very less people are kind of like execute, spend their life in a music and things and that. So that's why it just not happened. So that's why we actually seen very less kind of like a musician. But in today's point of perspective, music is a very good field. Okay, yeah, you can earn money, you can earn a lot of amount of money and things and that. Okay, yeah, but still what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that history is a kind of like something to tell us regarding about that. So that's why we actually see the world and things and that. Okay, but whatever, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, usually is this thing that our education system are associated with the money. You get education, get a job, get money, that's it. Okay, yeah. Now the problem is that lack of innovation. Now what exactly is this thing, what is that lack of innovation? Okay, yeah. Let me kind of like give you, being educated and being innovator, two different thing. Yeah, those are two different thing, those are not one thing. Okay, yeah, I can be innovate something, it doesn't really require you need to be educated. Yeah, you can innovate things without having any kind of like education. Best example, Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo doesn't really went to school, but he learned writing, reading. He kind of like have a curiosity regarding about the human anatomy, and he does a lot of things. Okay, yeah. So being innovator doesn't really require to be a kind of like a somebody education or educated. Okay, yeah, that is a important thing. Okay, so what exactly happened, what's wrong, why we does not innovate things? Okay, yeah, but it's just thinking that maybe is it wrong, like basically most of the people are kind of like educated and then they innovate things. All right, so let me give you the context, let me give you the understanding. Okay, in simple language. Okay, yeah. So let's just say that ki um, okay, basically is this thing that na ki you realize, okay, let's just say that ki um, um, okay, running would be really good. I kind of like somebody do this thing. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing na ki let's just say that ki I want to run. Okay, yeah. So basically I just run. Okay, yeah. But when I run, I realize that ki my feet get lot of like a kind of like a things like I am not wearing any kind of like a shoes or things and that. Okay, yeah. Like imagine I'm a 200 year ago. Okay, 200 year ago, I wanted to run. Okay, yeah. The problem is that running is that ki my feet get lot of hurt. Like basically is the thing, there is a lot of kind of like a debris and things, and basically my legs are very much like it get like, yeah, I need kind of like a protection for my leg. Okay, yeah. So the innovation of boot are happened by running, right? Like if we do not run, how do we supposed to innovate the shoes? Do you understand? Okay, yeah. So sometime really understand that thing key. When you want to innovate things, you need to understand the gap is really essential. Okay, yeah. You want to run faster, but you cannot run faster. Why? Because your legs are hurting, because your legs doesn't really have any protection and things and that. So when it does not have any protection, what will you gonna do? You need to add protection. So what would you do is that I might kind of like wear something on leg, maybe kind of like a leaf or things or whatever it is. Okay, yeah. Which is eventually became a shoes in the next future. Do you understand? So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key, take example is this thing, you are educated and you realize that key I know ABCD 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, yeah. But I realize that key if I kind of like somebody add one element and two element together, it became three. Okay, yeah. So that if I do this theorem, it would be kind of like a much more easier to kind of like add things. I shouldn't supposed to be count 1 2 3 4 5. No, it's not. It's like a, okay, this is a 1, this is a 2. Okay, so let's just say, okay, yeah, you understand 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, yeah. So you have a one element and you have two element. Okay, yeah. So you have kind of like a simply how many things that you have. This is the 1, this is the 2. So how many is this thing? 1 plus 2 3, right? Yeah. But like it's kind of like a very easy to say because of that I do know addition, right? But 200 years ago this is not. So basically this thing, if I need to count this thing, how do I supposed to count? 1 2 3. Okay, now it's a very simple thing that easily understand. But let's take an example. Let's just say 47 plus 39. How much? Like you will started counting 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 47. Then basically it's this thing 47, then 48 49 things and that and that and that and that. Okay, then you whatever the number that you get, okay, this is it. Okay, yeah. So this is a conventional way of education, but you realize that that is a very long way. If I try 47 plus 39, then it would be kind of like a simply that key, it would be much better. So I would kind of like create the plus sign, and then I would kind of like simply understand, okay, this is this is that. If I add this, then it would kind of like create the number. That number would be kind of like simply much more better than counting from 1 to 47 plus 39 and things like that and that. Okay, yeah. So what I realized that na key usually is this thing that key you innovation is actually happened by kind of like a doing things in a normal way. You found the gap, you found that particular problem, that key how do I supposed to be solve or addition this thing, okay, in less amount of time. And when you understand that problem, then you kind of like get that kind of like somebody get that value number and things and that. So do you understand? The innovation happened when kind of like somebody necessity, because the necessity is that you need to start calculate faster, but you can't, so you just create the theorem addition. Okay, yeah. And when you create that thing, it just kind of like somebody became a kind of like something that came like do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? Okay, yeah. Like if you need to know one thing, then you innovate another thing. Okay, yeah. If you do not know the counting, how would you supposed to be innovate addition? It does not, na? It does not, right? So innovation actually happened that finding that gaps. Okay, yeah. Now our education system is not letting us to find that gap. Okay, why? Like how? What? Like, yeah, that is true. Okay, yeah. You went to school and somebody started teaching you trigonometry. Ask, why are you kind of like learning this trigonometry? Why? It's kind of like someone tell you that why are you kind of like learning this trigonometry? Is your syllabus have that thing that why you need to know trigonometry? Okay, like it's kind of like telling you that. No, they're just telling you that this is a trigonometry, this is the physics, this is the Newton law, this is the Einstein laws and things like that. But why? That is the question. That's the innovative point of perspective. Is this thing they want? Our education system is not letting you to ask why. But why? Like why does our education system does not kind of like assembly tell you that why? Does not kind of like assembly tell you that kind of like a why thing? Does not kind of like assembly find? Does not kind of like let you that find that gap? Why? Why is not? It because of that. If you started finding that why, if you started finding that gap, okay, yeah, that gap means lack of information. Okay, yeah, if you try to find that thing, you will kind of like somebody ignore rest of the education. Okay, what exactly that? Okay, yeah. Let's just say Einstein is kind of like somebody innovate the space time. Okay, general relativity theory and things and that. Okay, how does he innovate that? Because he found that gap. Okay, yeah. And when he found that gap, and when he tried to fill that gap with whatever the information that he has, what he did, he spent entire day and night and everything, whatever the brain and information that he have to fill that gap. Na, he will not utilize that entire brain to kind of like doing something different, like politics or things or that and that. No, he spent entire life to kind of like find that fill that gap and things and that. And this is our education system does not allow you. Why? Like, let's just imagine is this thing. You are the industrialist and you need a kind of like hundreds of people for letting to do their work. Okay, yeah. But if our education system kind of like telling them why do you need to learn trigonometry, why do you learn this and that, so everyone will kind of like find this why and they will not gonna educate even more. Okay, yeah. They will not gonna kind of like they will not gonna focus on social science, they will not gonna focus on history, they will not gonna focus, they will kind of like focus on this why in that. And when this actually happened, they will not gonna educate. When they will not gonna educate, they will not gonna get a job. When they will not get a job, they will not gonna get money. So basically this thing, it's not the industrial doesn't want you to kind of like find this why. It's a kind of like a system that we has. Like basically is this thing that if you wanted to spend your life to finding that why, finding that gap, finding that lack of information, then probably is this thing you have to be kind of like somebody that sacrifice your education, sacrifice some certain thing. Okay, yeah. And when you sacrifice your time and things and that, you will not gonna get a job. When you're not gonna get a job, you will not gonna get money. So because of this thing, innovation happen less. So that's why we just kind of like simply head down and kind of like started doing whatever the education system kind of like tell us things and that. Okay, so this is what it is. This is what kind of like education system does not let you find that why, find that gap, find that kind of like innovate things and that. Okay, yeah. And if you try to find that thing, then you have to sacrifice everything. You have to sacrifice your kind of like a freedom, everything and that, and you just have to find that guy. Have you ever kind of like noticed that the people who are kind of like really excited to know or understand to know or kind of like being scientists and things, they are always finding that why, finding that particular thing. They just spend entire day and nights into that thing. Okay, yeah. For what? Like, will they get money for finding that why? No, will they not? They will not gonna get money. Why? Because of that key, like basically finding that why is very much difficult. too much difficult. And even after you found that why, still not really have chances that you will kind of like get the money, because of that ki other people should supposed to be accept that why or not. Okay, so this is what it, that's why kind of like it's more complicated than that. So that's why kind of like somebody is saying most of people are not really innovate, they just kind of like somebody tilting their head and kind of like do the things. Okay, yeah, I don't want my education like that. Like basically Indian education is even more crippled. Like they don't really even tell you anything about that. They won't not tell you the why are you kind of like learning. Why is that? Why is that not? Why is that? They just not. They just kind of like telling you 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. But no one asks why. Okay, yeah. As well as the teacher doesn't really know why. They just kind of like telling the information that. So education is not letting them innovate things. Do you understand? That's why the very less of innovation are actually happen. Like basically it's this thing, why does most of the innovation are actually happen till the 1900th century, or maybe kind of like somebody is this thing that key, yeah, like most of the innovation, okay, yeah, before, like after the industrial revolution, very less innovated thing actually happened. Like I'm not saying that key innovation does not happen, innovation happened, like it's not, okay, like the world that we are living, okay, yeah, the everything that we have, okay, yeah, but what is exactly that? It's a upgraded version of the whatever the people who innovate that things, okay, yeah, like basically thousands of years ago people kind of like innovate the house. Right now we are have the upgraded version of the house. So it's not the innovation, it's the upgradation. Okay, it's upgradation. So I'm not counting that upgrade. Like basically it's this thing that na ki you have the weapon which is kind of like a far less destructive. Right now you have weapon that much more destructive. So it's a upgraded version. Is it innovation? Yeah, somewhat something say, but it's not a kind of like a somebody the like exactly groundbreaking things. Like basically it's this thing that na space time. Einstein kind of like innovate the space time. Okay, yeah, before that space time is not even exist. Like not even exist means like that there is no concept at all, there is no things at all, like nothing really at all. So Einstein innovate from ground up, and from that ground up someone kind of like somebody develop that theory, develop that, or kind of like upgrade that theory to even more bigger, like a Einstein-Rosen bench, or kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki black hole radiation, okay, yeah, or kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki like a lot of things. Okay, there are so many things that actually innovate after the kind of like Einstein things and that. I wanted to people should supposed to think like Einstein, or think like Isaac Newton, or think like that. Create such a thing that is not exist. Okay, yeah. Upgrade, yeah, like I wanted to be kind of like somebody upgraded version of this and that. But at some certain point, how much will you upgrade? Example, mobile phone. Mobile phone are upgraded so much that there is no room for innovation. Like your mobile phone can do so many things. It can shoot video, audio, connect internet, call somebody. You can spend, like, this is your entire world. Okay, yeah. New phone actually came every single year, and they don't know what do is supposed to be innovate, because like they don't know so they don't know what is supposed to be upgrade, because at some certain time upgrade it just stops, because there is no room for upgradation, because the product is already upgraded much more better. The processor that we have, the Snapdragon 8 Gen Elite 5 and things like that, is are very strong, very things. Okay, yeah. So basically, do we understand that thing? So basically we need to innovate things like that. We need to innovate the mobile phone in new technology, like a kind of like a things that what if we would not have that phone in our hand, like the phone in our eyes, or maybe phone in our kind of like a somebody is this thing that we don't really carry that kind of like a somebody that 200 gram of bricks every single time. Meta Ray-Ban glass, or Apple Vision Pro is a kind of like a really good example of kind of like a try to innovate the mobile phone into new technology and things and that. Okay, so this is what it is. Okay, this is what most of people kind of like a focus on upgradation, but very less people are focused on innovation. That's why so many mobile phone companies are actually focused on cameras, processor, and things and that, but very less companies are try to focus on innovating a new world of smartphone like Apple Vision Pro, or kind of like assembly the metaverse, or kind of like a Meta Ray-Ban and things and that. So do you understand the concept? Oh my god, I've been talking for almost like a 44 minutes. I'm really tired to talk and things like that. I'm just like a talking. And I think that I haven't really give the proper answer regarding about that. And this would actually happen when I'm just kind of like started talking. I just bluntly just talk. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm really tired to talk right now. It's been almost like a 45 minutes I'm talking. Okay, non-stop. Okay, so now so this question is kind of like even more difficult. So if I have to give the answer, it would kind of take me another half an hour to kind of like explain this thing. But still, again, I explain. Okay, yeah. So the question is first is that the visible announcement risk. Like, am I just painting the door, or kind of like fixing the problem? My education program is fix that problem. My education program is kind of like a let them innovate, let them have find that gap or find that thing. Okay, yeah. But how is that? Okay, so my education program, specifically my Gurukul program, I kind of like a name as a Gurukul program. Okay, yeah. Why? Gurukul is a name, is a kind of like ancient Indian name, is a context like basically is this thing, the if the people wanted to be learn or things and that they have to go to the Gurukul. Now Gurukul is not an institute, is not a kind of like assembly university. It's a place, it's a legit city where you could learn things. Okay, like Nalanda is a Gurukul. So Nalanda is not just a university, it's an entire city that you could kind of like go there and learn things. Okay, yeah. Gurukul, guru means like that teacher, kul means like that kind of like a place, a kind of like assembly, a home or things and that. A place where you could have a teacher could kind of like a learn, kind of like a, so that is called Gurukul. Okay, yeah. So I'm actually focused on Gurukul program. So how does kind of like a Gurukul program solve that thing? How does kind of like a Gurukul program kind of like a let them let them kind of like a let them have a kind of like assembly innovate things? How does it actually happen? Okay, yeah. So it actually happened by kind of like assembly that he let them teach. Like basically it's this thing that na ki I wanted to teach whatever the lesson. I wanted to tell you why you should supposed to be learn trigonometry, why you should supposed to be learn the physics, why should you supposed to be learn this and that. I will gonna tell them why. Okay, yeah. Also is this thing that ki my education system will gonna provide you that ki is there any kind of like a something that ki bugs are actually fixed, or is there kind of like a something room for innovation and things would be happen if it that like a basically is this thing na ke I like a basically is this thing na the one of the biggest problem to not to have innovate is that ki detach from education to money. Okay, yeah. Like basically in our world education and money are attached. Okay, yeah. More education, more money, more education, more money, more education, more money. Okay, yeah. So basically most of people are just kind of like a focus on getting more education to get more money. I wanted to detach that. It's really good. Okay, yeah. I wanted to detach that. Money is different, education is different. Okay, yeah. Means like that ki if the kind of like somebody, the birds are fighting. Yeah, there's like I'm actually first time I'm seeing the birds are fighting. Okay, yeah. So there is also another question, why the birds are making that much amount of noise? Like it's a very tiny bird, they are kind of like making so much amount of noise. Okay, by the way, how that make the noise is not depend on the how much size that they have. It's a kind of like a somebody is just saying how much kind of they liberate the air from their vocal cords. Okay, yeah. Like okay, let me tell you, it's a very simple thing. It's not simple thing, it's a like have you seen whistle is kind of like a very tiny, but they kind of like somebody create so much amount of blow. Why is that? Because the amount of air kind of like a goes through very small section, so that's what kind of like a creates. So basically it's this thing, the bigger the volume of the character which have a kind of like a less create the noise, the smaller the animal would kind of like a create more noise. Okay, so that's why horse sound is a kind of like a much more smaller than bird sound. Okay, yeah, get it? It's kind of like a thing. It's a very simple fact, by the way. Okay, yeah. So the question is that question. What exactly was that question? Question is that I wanted to detach education from money. Okay, yeah. How do I supposed to do that? Okay, yeah. By kind of like a let them educate till the rest of the lifetime. Yeah, I wanted to people should supposed to be educated for the rest of the lifetime. Like basically in today's point of perspective, education is only for kind of like a, somebody do this thing for graduation and things and that and that. I don't want that. I wanted that education should not supposed to be stopped for rest of the lifetime. No, it does not. A kind of like a student just learn every single day, every single day, every single day, every single day till the rest of the lifetime. Okay, yeah, it will not gonna stop nothing really at all. One thing. Another thing is that if I kind of like let that thing, then probably is this thing that now it will automatically detach. Another thing, okay, yeah, is that key. I wanted to remove all the burdens, all the kind of like a something that all the kind of like a things that they kind of like a problem. Might be my kind of like a phone get warmer is because of that. It kind of like getting a lot of heat. Probably I have to be move like that way. Okay, yeah. This would. Or maybe wait, I have to change. Okay, right now my phone in shadow, so it does not get warmer. Is it get warmer? Yeah, it does get warmer, something like that. Whatever. Recording shouldn't supposed to stop, by the way. It's been almost like a 51 minute. Oh my god, I have to be end very quickly. Okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing, how do I supposed to be kind of like a somebody is this thing that key innovate, okay, as to detach from the kind of like a simply detach from kind of like a education to money. How do I supposed to detach that education should supposed to be continue till the rest of the lifetime? Okay, yeah. How does that actually happen? By eliminating the kind of like a simply the burdens or stages. What stages? First of all, exam. Okay, yeah. I wanted to remove the exam. I wanted to remove that thing. I don't want to kind of like a student should supposed to be get kind of like a exam, go exam and things and that and that. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. Okay, yeah. People shouldn't supposed to focus on just the exam. I doesn't want that. I wanted to remove that thing. Okay, yeah. So, but if I remove that thing, how do I supposed to define the credibility of the person? Credibility of the person defined by the consistency or persistent. Okay, yeah. But what is exactly that? I wanted to build the Gurukul app, a Gurukul app where kind of like some app where kind of like you kind of like get the entire information, education, and you will also learn over there too. Okay, yeah, you have kind of like a solve some puzzle, do some kind of like assembly questions, answer, and things like that and that. Okay, yeah. So if it actually happened, and you have to be consistent. Okay, if you have to be consistent, you kind of like increase the score and things like that and that. That score is kind of like a visible for rest of the public. Okay, yeah. So that kind of like it defined by the credibility of you, that how you consistent you are, because growth comes from the consistent and persistent. Okay, yeah. Like every day you kind of like open that application and kind of like do this thing and that and that. Okay, yeah. If I do this thing, I'm kind of like detaching from education to money. Okay, so if I detach that thing, there is a kind of like a room for innovation. Okay, yeah. So that kind of like a people will gonna room for innovation, because learning never gonna stop. The graduation will not gonna exist. There is no graduation, there is no things, there is no kind of like a job or college or middle school or high school or preschool or junior year, and no, nothing really at all. Just a Gurukul program, that's it. And it will gonna end towards the lifetime. Okay, there is no kind of like a somebody thinks that I am from second year, final year, and things like that. No, nothing like that. There is the human intelligence doesn't really define by the kind of like a somebody the kind of like a where it are and things like that. It does not. It's just kind of like always gonna learn, and I just have to remove that exam and things and that and that, so that people are kind of like a wanted to learn by thought process, by just they want. Okay, yeah. And when they do it, they kind of like solve the exam and things and that and that. But when they solve the exam, that data, the scoreboard is a kind of like assembly publicly available, so that any people who wanted to be hire a student or credible person, they will kind of like find that a scoreboard in that scoreboard there is a people who are kind of like a really good at something or that and that and that. When they found that thing, they will kind of like something hire that particular people, and when they hire they will get a job. But simultaneously when they get a job, simultaneously they will gonna do the study, because spending almost like a half an hour or 1 hour in the application, it does not kind of like take that much amount of time. Okay, yeah. And also if you keep doing this thing, you improve your score. If you improve the score, then probably is this thing that na ki you will kind of like get even more bigger opportunity, like basically bigger company and things and that and that. If you get that bigger company and things, you will kind of like improve your score and things and that and that. But dude, let me tell you one thing. You are kind of like thinking that you wanted to detach from education to money. Okay, yeah, to kind of like create the kind of like some curiosity based people and things and that and that. But indirectly you are kind of like attaching from money to people na. Okay, like you are attaching kind of like somebody your score is actually is your kind of like get good job, and when you get the good job and things and that and that, so you are actually attaching the people, right? Well, basically this thing I just have to think from possible point of perspective. Okay, is that not every people are innovator. Okay, yeah. And innovation is actually came from the experience or kind of like a necessity. Okay, yeah. That necessity is kind of like always been feel by the, like basically I have to be tell them why and things and that and that. It's not my job to kind of like innovate things, is the people job. Okay, yeah. But also I have to make sure that I have to give them room, like I'm actually giving them entire life for room, that they will kind of like innovate anything, anywhere, anytime. Okay, yeah. Just kind of like simultaneously spend almost like a half an hour in the application and kind of like do your thing, do your job, earn money, things and that, improve your credibility, and also improve your kind of like a talent and things and that and that. Also is this thing that now my application is actually focus on expertise, like if the particular person really expert in mathematics and things and that, and you are kind of like spending more times, and if you are loving this kind of like solving mathematics problems and things and that, automatically you are a innovator, you are kind of like innovating your brains to much more level and things and that. Okay, yeah. So this is what it is, this is what I will gonna do to kind of like fix that problem. Okay, yeah. Because in traditional point of perspective, education are limited, like basically you are kind of like doing the education till some certain bit of time and that's it, like till the graduation. But I don't want that. I want that education should not supposed to be stopped. It always gonna continue throughout the rest of the lifetime. Okay, because it will gonna compound effect, and you will kind of like suddenly when you become more educated, you kind of like more educated means like more knowledge and things, not just degree, not just kind of like a BCom, MCom, and kind of like a somebody like a B and things. And no, I don't want the kind of like a somebody label as a doctor and senior and things, and I don't want that. A kind of like a somebody, our world, our brain is not defined by the kind of like a tagline, it defined by the kind of like a continue improvements and things and that. My application is kind of like assembly, let them people will kind of like assembly continue their works and things and that. Okay, so it will kind of like assembly solve that problem. It kind of like things that keep people should supposed to be always improving themselves in much more better. Okay, so this is the problem number one I could able to solve. Problem number two. Okay, yeah. So the problem number two is that key deep systematic transformation. Okay, yeah. Where should I fixing the foundation? Okay, where should I fixing the foundation means like that if the pipes are leak, then I should suppose fix the pipe, not a kind of like an entire system, right? But that is a big problem. The big problem is that if you fix just a pipe, then you are fixing just a pipe. Okay, yeah, you're not fixing things. Like if I'm kind of like a fixing that key, okay, I will kind of like a simply fix that thing, but it does not. Like basically is this thing na ki if you kind of like a fixing the simple kind of like a mistake in the painting, it will kind of like a disturb the entire painting. So it is essential that ki kind of like a create a new canvas and kind of like a create new painting and things and that. Okay, yeah. And kind of like a somebody try not to do that mistake again. Okay, yeah. If I'm kind of like a changing the entire education system, I should supposed to focus on every factor, not just kind of like a fixing the pipes and things and that. Yeah, it kind of like a simply very essential to kind of like a fix the pipe in kind of like for, but those are solution for short term period. Okay, if I wanted to kind of like a fix on for the long term growth, like I'm kind of like seeing that as a long term thing, then it is really essential to kind of like a simply restore the entire house. Okay, yeah, that is the things. Okay, so if I wanted to change, then I wanted to not only change the pipe, I wanted to change the entire thing, and I'm gonna make sure that entire thing will gonna work in the future. And the third question is that third question is that policy theater. how do I stop acting and start doing? Okay, yeah, policy sector means like that ki, like a show off. Okay, yeah, like a, do you want to show off this thing? Yeah, that's really good question. That ki, why are you kind of like a recording this artifact? Okay, so that people will gonna know that ki you will kind of like a some credible person to kind of like a change the entire education and things in that and that. So in the end, you are kind of like doing the show off, right? So is it show off or is it kind of like a things that you really wanted to change? That's a really good question. Okay. um, I'm gonna kind of like give the simple example, okay, so that you might gonna understand. In 1991, in specifically in India, liberalization has actually happened. Who is the father of liberalization? Okay, yeah, like if I'm gonna say in India, so most of people might gonna say that Manmohan Singh is the father of kind of like a led the liberalization, kind of like a company will kind of like a came to our country and kind of like a started building the products and giving the rozgar to the people and things and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically, this thing liberalization is a kind of like a one of the biggest change which actually happened by the kind of like a Manmohan Singh. Okay, yeah. So if I change the entire education system, will I be able to be kind of like a somebody kind of like a that particular person who kind of like a change the entire education system? I think I will be. Am I seeking for that? Like am I wanted to be a particular person who changed the entire education system? I don't want it to be, but I will get that tagline. Okay, yeah. Why? Like it's a kind of like a things. Okay, yeah. We just remember the people by what does they did. Okay, yeah. So I think that na ki I don't seeking for that tagline, but probably is this thing na ki it will gonna happen even if I don't want to it happen. Like I will not gonna change the entire education system by kind of like a somebody just sitting in front of the desk and kind of like doing my work and kind of like telling no. It's a change of entire thing. It changed the entire human perspective. I wanted to change the everything. I wanted to shut down the tuition, classes, colleges, kind of like a somebody is this thing, exam and things and that. It is a massive change, massive change. The entire education system that we build, our economy, our everything, our entire eco structure are actually based on our education system. How many services that we build to establish that thing. And if I want to eliminate everything, it is a lot. I will not gonna eliminate everything by doing silence. I have to make a little bit of noise. So is it show business? No, I don't like. Is it show? No, it's I don't want to be show business. Like it's not really that. I really wanted to change. I like basically if I wanted to see the people are kind of like a better at educating, better at kind of like a really good at knowing things or things and that. It should supposed to be kind of like a things that it should supposed to be start from somewhere, and that somewhere start is actually came from my thing. Then I would bear that thing. I would accept that ki I'm doing this for show business. Then probably yes I will, because there is no answer for that. There is no things. People always kind of like a remind you for that ki you will kind of like a particular person would kind of like a change the entire education system. I don't want to be associated with that memories or that thing, but I will, because in the end is this thing that ki I cannot able to be changed in one point of perspective. I really wanted to change. I really wanted to difference. And people will always remember the people who kind of like create the changes, I think. It's been almost like a 1 hour. Okay, this is it. I should supposed to be end here, and thank you.